I know you guys are probably gonna, go or probably did go hard on Kyle Busch, give him a bunch of shit as usual. But I'll just say, and Kyle Larson said this too, is that I think there were just two drivers racing really hard. The reports I had saw is that Kyle Busch ran Larson down the racetrack so that he didn't have a clean line or just an angle to get into the turn. But clearly Larson also didn't let up, and Kyle was on the. So it's two drivers racing real hard, and Kyle Busch was on the outside, and he got the worst of it, obviously.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a. Oh, we got a beer crack right away. Beer crack right away. But no, welcome back, everybody, to a Rednecks edition of the Couch Potato Podcast. I'm here with TJ today. We're gonna recap some of the race that happened this last week at Gateway. Unfortunately, we had some scheduling issues this week, and so we'll have Kyle on in the next portion of the podcast. In that section, we'll kind of go over a little bit of NASCAR news, a couple of topics that came up, and then we'll go into our power rankings and all that fun stuff. But while we're here, TJ, we're going to recap Gateway. So let's get right into it. Brad Keselowski, just to start off the race, your boy, Brad Keselowski. I don't know if what your racer is week in, week out. I mean, you got Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher. I feel like you just switch. I'm just waiting for your Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski gear to come in and see you switch every week.
It's not necessarily switching every week. I was always a Keselowski fan for Penske. Then he moved to his own team, and his team's actually doing good this year. So I don't know if I need to move away from Penske or just keep both of them. So it's a little bit of mix.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I swear, me and Kyle I mean, coming into this week, you were a big Brad fan. I mean, just think about your pick'ems. I mean, you took Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and then Ryan Blaney. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out right now. They're both Fords, and I'm okay with that. But we're gonna get it figured out by the end of the year, okay? It's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to lose that 30 pack at the end of the year because your Ford guys aren't doing too hot.
Hey, if Blaney wouldn't have ran out of gas, it would have been fine. I know we're gonna get into that, but he pulled a Keselowski. It's fine.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we'll get into it right away then with some Brad Keselowski news. We got in stage one, Brad Keselowski made a really, really beautiful save. I mean, you could just tell how much of a veteran this guy is off of this save. Bubba kind of got into him entering turn one, and yeah, kind of bumped him up the track into turn one, and he cranked that wheel and was able to save it without any damage on the car other than Bubba bumping him. So, I mean, you could just tell that, Brad Keselowski's a veteran driver and he knows what he's doing out there.
That's why it's hard because all of our drivers, Logano and Bush, are out the door. They're just making their way out. It's fine. And with Keselowski being a veteran driver with all those guys, and he's still able to, start beating them all. It's fantastic. I love it. He went from a top, not I wouldn't say top racing team, but he went from a good team to his own team, and now he's proven himself this year. Last year really sucked for him, but this year I think he kind of pulled his head out of his ass, and now they're starting to get up there now.
Oh yeah, that team's definitely like I don't know what happened this year, but they're definitely starting to show some They're starting to put out really good cars between Busher and Keselowski. I mean, they've both been looking pretty good this year. I mean, Keselowski's the only one with the win. Busher got a little snaked on. I think he got a little snaked on the Larson win when Larson just barely eked him out with the closest finish in NASCAR history. But yeah.
Yeah, it came down to either Larson or Busher winning, and Larson wanted to take him out so he could fucking win, and it came pretty damn close. But
Yeah.
the thing is the new fan favorite is Busher, because he's kind of the underdog that came out of, he got signed on with RFK, and now he's actually starting to prove himself in the series, and he's getting up there with the top dogs now. He's getting there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that he got voted as one of the most favorite drivers now. He passed Chase Elliott.
Yeah, so he's now the fan favorite instead of Chase Elliott. That was like as of I'd say about 2 to 3 months ago, but he's the new fan favorite.
Really?
Busher is, and it's really good for RFK. And I don't know how RFK's doing now, but they're 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 dominating more than Penske right now.
They're definitely doing a lot, but I think they're the best Ford team out there right now, for sure. But anyways, coming back into stage one here at Gateway, we had a great three-car battle for the stage one win with McDowell, Blaney, and Bell. It was a good way to finish off that stage one, with Bell taking the win. So, I mean, Bell pretty damn dominant throughout this whole race. I mean, we'll get into it a little later, but he eventually ends up taking stage two as well. So,
Well, the thing is Bill, he's very underestimated in the NASCAR community. Bill is a hell of a driver, and he's got really fast cars. Like, he's got a really good team under him, but I just don't think he has the aggression as the older guys have and the up and coming guys. He's just kind of in the
yeah.
middle.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. Just look at his team. I mean, you got Denny Hamlin on your team. You got,
Well, we're not talking about fucking Danny Hamlin. We never talk about we never speak that name. Okay.
I know. You and me both, but we both fucking hate Denny Hamlin a lot. That's why you and I are the only ones that haven't picked him in the pick'ems yet. We'll never root for him.
I will never pick Danny Hamlin ever in my life. I don't care how good of a driver he is. All of my drivers have made championships besides Keselowski. He's never made one, and he made that clear in the little documentary.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did. Um, so staying in stage one, Kyle Busch stays out, or finishing stage one, jumping into stage two. We got Kyle Busch stays out after stage one and leads for 20 laps before Bell takes the lead again. Um, I mean, I feel like Bush nowadays he has to come up with these crazy strategies because I mean his team is just not putting out the cars. You know what I mean? He is just not.
No, not at all.
It's definitely not the same car as like he was driving with Gibbs. So I mean,
and
and
it's
then
kind of the
like you
same.
were saying before, Bell just being dominant this whole race. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes back to like I remember when Joey Logano and Kyle Busch were like at their peaks, and
Yeah.
it was always a competition between them. But now they've kind of fallen off to these younger guys, and I am more rooting for these younger guys and all the just like they're making their ranks in the system right now. And I just think our drivers on the way out, they should probably just own their own teams at this point and just kind of disappear.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want Logano to own a team in Cup, or you want him to have a team of those 18-year-olds
Not
you were talking about that Kyle likes to
no
go
no.
race?
Yeah, he had in order to win a race, he has to go to the lower leagues. It's fine. It's whatever. Like
Well,
he can do his own thing.
yeah, I mean, we give Kyle shit for it. I mean, you give Kyle shit for it the most. It's
Well,
funny because
because
this last
I don't
race,
see any of our drivers going down to 18-year-old level. Hell, 18 to 16-year-old level just to win a fucking race. To be like, woo, I won.
oh, I mean, Ross does it a few times a year. Ross goes down and he races truck, and I don't think he races Xfinity, but I know he races truck.
Dude, Ross hasn't even been on the register this year. Like he's just kind of doing his own thing. Like it's
I
fine.
know.
This year is not his year. It's fine. He can go play with the other people. It's fine.
See, I mean,
I
I mean, there's just nothing that I can't like argue with you about. I mean, you know, he was the what is that called, the evil guy in these last few years. You know what I mean? Like coming down when he got his win at Coda, you know, and bumped two drivers out of the way to go get the win, or his
well,
battles with
then he's
Larson
cheating ass
last year.
decided to cut through an infield.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah, 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 yeah. But I'd rather watch him drive that way. I'd rather watch him drive that way than how he's racing now. I'd like him to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And because now
Just a little bit more aggressive.
he went baby face, and now it's like, dude, come on, let's pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, he's not as aggressive, and like after his little wall run, and then the year after, he just hasn't been really aggressive at all.
He hasn't, and that's why I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could sit here and go on and on about how disappointed I am in Ross Chastain this year, but we'll carry
So
on with
you're
the
gonna go
recap.
to you're gonna go to Keselowski now?
Oh hell no, no, I'm a true fan. I stay with Ross Chastain. I'd say, if anything, TJ, I'd go with Busher. I liked Busher before he was popular. I liked Busher last year.
Well, yeah, that is true. That is very much true.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Busher, so I mean, that's not like but I'm not gonna switch from Ross. I'm not. It's not like I'm gonna go buy a bunch of Busher merch when we go down to Vegas this year in October. I'm not gonna go buy a bunch of Busher merch. I'll stick with my Ross. I'll stick with Ross Chastain.
I'm gonna be
I'm not gonna
honest.
have five drivers like you.
I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna buy his collectible cars, Chastain's cars, because they are
Oh
just
yeah.
badass.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen him. I don't think I've seen him.
Well, we had the poll not too long ago that Kyle was, what we talked about last weekend,
Yeah.
his car designs.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna buy a couple of Ross Chastain cars.
Oh, okay. Yeah, his cars. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, his all of his Bush cars are all pretty cool. I'll definitely be looking at
I
those.
love them.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely be looking at those. Definitely the Bass one, the Bush Bass one. I want that one, and I want the flannel one. Those are probably my two favorites.
Those are the two that I want.
Anyways, let's so coming into stage two here at Gateway, we've got we've got 2X Blue Attire in stage two, which put him back. I mean, he was having a good race up to that point, and that put him back, you know, a couple laps down. um, and then we go into Josh Berry causes a caution with 25 laps to go in stage two, and then Kyle Larson wrecked Kyle Busch to end stage two, and then he ends Busch's day. Which, I mean, we were all clapping about when it happened, so. We got a little bit of Mike Joy
Yeah,
out of Kyle there for a little bit, so that.
yeah. Gotta get on my good.
That's Kyle's new nickname. So if you guys want to throw in the comments, that'd be Kyle's new nickname. We'll call him Mike Joy. So when you guys throw it in the comments, call him Mike Joy. He loves it. I'll just tell you right now, he loves it.
Absolutely. He's keen on
it. But okay, so then we'll go into stage 3 here. Obviously, Bell took stage 2 as well. Like I said, dominant car pretty much all day. And then coming into stage 3, towards the end, Blaney had the lead late, but Christopher Bell made a charge right there at the end. Like I said, he had a good car all day. But all of a sudden, he had a mechanical issue. Nobody knows what it was. Hasn't been anything released on it. So we'll kind of maybe keep an eye out and see if NASCAR releases that. And then Martin Truex, who blew a tire and went a few laps down, actually started to push Bell. We had some teammate love there. He pushed Bell for a few laps and then kind of hopped off his back and tried to make up some time after pushing Bell around the track a few times. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, Truex just coming down and helping Bell after he's having a mechanical failure.
I didn't know they were teammates.
Truex and Bell?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both race for Gibbs.
Yep, didn't know that until just now.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was thinking about actually when I first started watching NASCAR, I was thinking about taking Martin Truex, and then I realized he raced on Team Gibbs with Kyle Busch at the time, and I was like, man, I can't choose a Kyle Busch teammate. Come on now.
Yeah, I literally had no idea they were teammates. I didn't know Truex ran for Gibbs. Like, I thought he was on his own. I was thinking Tony Stewart.
Oh,
and so
yeah?
I was like, I didn't understand the different levels, but I didn't know that they were teammates. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I was listening to you and I'm like, wait, they're teammates? And now it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's all I have on that. I didn't know they were teammates.
The wheels finally started turning in that head of yours for a second.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So then we come down to the end of the race. Ryan Blaney, typical fashion, just decided to fuck up and ran out of fuel on the last lap, which gave his teammate Austin Cindric the win at Gateway.
It's a Penske issue. Keselowski used to do it all the time, especially in Vegas. He'd run out of fuel last fucking lap every time.
Joey Logano doesn't do that. Joey Logano likes to go to the infield grass.
I know. But I didn't know. So he basically pulled a Keselowski on the last lap, ran out of fuel. And what place did he go to? Like 32nd? Like basically dead ass last?
No, I think he finished 28th, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Still dead ass last, and he was running the whole last half the race.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had the win in the bag. You almost had the win in the pick'ems in the bag.
I am aware of this. And then he pulled a Keselowski and fucking ran out of fuel.
Somebody on Blaney's crew just decided to not put in an extra lap of fuel, or they weren't tracking it right, or the guy with the headset up in the booth, I mean, wasn't keeping track of the fuel of the car, or Blaney was running it too hard and he didn't need to, type of thing. Because I mean, if I remember correctly, Blaney had a pretty good lead on Cindric.
He had a hell of a lead, but I will give it to Team Penske. They won a race. And did Busher won a race? Or no, it was not Busher. It was
Kozlowski.
Cindric. Cindric.
Oh, Cindric.
Cindric.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad he was a teammate.
Yeah, and it was cool to see, because it was all Penske cars up there in the front in those last few laps. You had Blaney, Cindric, and Logano, right? All three of them were up there. 1, 2, and 3.
I think Logano fell back to like 12th or some shit.
Yeah, but at one point in stage 3, I think it was all three of them up there in the lead. I remember you getting all
they were
excited
all pushing.
about it.
Well, I think Logano was in the top 10. He wasn't up there with them. He was up there a couple of times, but he didn't have a good enough car to
I believe
get around
Logano got a
everybody.
top 10. I'm pretty sure Logano got a top 10 finish.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Kyle might know right off the gate of his head.
Top of his head. Yeah.
So,
there's a reason why Mike Joy / Kyle likes to he usually runs these things. But yeah, what do you feel about Blaney, messing up that last lap? That's just, it feels like it's almost amateur hour, you know what I mean?
well, for somebody that wins a championship, I understand he didn't win the championship race. Chastain did, but he eventually he got a championship. But I think from winning a championship to pulling that move was just, I don't know if it was just a pit error or something like that, but he was, towards the end of the race, he was pushing that car hard. Like he was wanting to get that gap away from everybody, and I just think that's what was the downfall of him.
Yeah.
Because it was, God, what was it? It was the final lap to checkered, and he ran out of fucking gas halfway
Yep.
through the track, right?
Yep. I think he came around into I believe it was turn 1 and 2 when he started yelling, "I'm out of gas! I'm out of gas!" Or actually,
And
no,
then he went around, turned.
I think it was the white flag lap. I believe it was the white flag lap because he came around, and as soon as I think it was turns 3 and 4 actually. If I'm getting my story straight here, I believe it was turns 3
So
and
I
4.
think
He
it was,
came around and was
yeah,
like, "I'm out of gas!
3 and
I'm out of
4 he
gas!"
ran out.
As he was crossing the finish line, he was yelling, "I'm out of gas."
Well, so I think he lost it coming out of turn 4 because
Yeah.
that's when Cindric gained up on him, and then
Mhm.
everybody else gained up on him right out of turn 4, and he couldn't move at all.
Yeah, no, yeah. Everybody got up to him super fast. If he would have had just, with
Just a
that,
little bit. Just a little
he
bit.
just needed it a little bit. I think he had enough lead that if he would have made it around the track just to turn 3, I think he would have had enough fuel and had enough of a gap to make it to the finish line before Cindric did. I really think so.
Yeah, that's what I think. They just got too cocky, they thought they were gonna make it, and he pushed a little too hard, and then he pulled a Keselowski and ran out of fuel last lap. It's normal. It's okay.
Yeah. It's just, and that's why I say it's like a typical Blaney fashion on why you know, why it ended that way is because every time that he's in that position, even to get a top 5, not even for a win the race, some of the times. It just seems like Blaney has that just bad luck charm that for some reason something always happens to him. That's why in our
Yep,
group,
I agree.
that's why in our group, when we're watching NASCAR on Sundays, that's our joke as to why it's like always there goes Blaney. You know what I mean? Like me and Kyle
Exactly.
start me and Kyle start screaming that shit when he wrecks, and
God.
so
But
yeah. So if you don't have anything else more to add to that, I think we'll
nope. I think that's pretty much the recap of it all. So
yeah. I think we'll take just a short little break, and we'll have Kyle on here in a little bit. But that's the recap of Gateway. It was a good race. Lots of exciting things happened, especially down at the end when Blaney runs out of gas, and yeah, it was a really good race. So
it was a good time.
we'll take we'll take a quick break. We'll say goodbye to TJ and bring Mike Joy / Kyle on, and we'll catch y'all guys later.
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Welcome back after a short little break. We got Kyle with us now.
Yo,
We'll
yo.
sit here and talk about some NASCAR news. Kyle, what you got for us?
Yeah, we had a couple of headlines this week. I'll just start it off with Todd Gilliland because I know we had some front row motorsports. They've kind of just had a lot going on with Michael McDowell leaving, and then they got that third charter like we talked about last week. But Todd Gilliland staying put in that 38 car at front row motorsports, and I'll just say I like the move. I think Todd Gilliland's had a strong run the last couple of seasons. It's not like he's, a top five driver competing for wins, but I feel like you can count on him to finish, in the top 20, maybe get you a top 15, top 10 on a good day, which happens pretty often for him. So I think that'll be good just to continue in that ride with that team, and hopefully he just kind of progresses and gets a little bit stronger as the years come on.
Yeah, no, hopefully he starts to get stronger. Like you said, he's not a top five driver by any means, but yeah, you're right. So
Yeah, so good for them. Yeah, like I said, I like Todd Gillen. I feel like everyone in the garage does too, and I'm sure he can, find a way to win sometime soon. But did want to talk about a rumor that now this is like there's no backing, there's no official reports. It's just something I saw on like a Kyle Busch fan page or group on Facebook or whatever, but it was like a report of an article where Dale Jr. spoke about the possibility, or that he is hearing rumors of Noah Gragson driving the three car for RCR next season.
oh,
Um, yeah, so quite a shocking news. I think that would be you know, really probably a far fetched thing. It may be really hard to make happen. I feel like Austin Dillon, no matter how good or bad he is, he's pretty locked in there as the, grandson of Richard Childress. And he's just so locked into so many sponsorships there in that three car at RCR, Bass Pro Shops. He's got a Zila or something. It's like a respiratory thing. I know he's got a bunch of them that he's been locked down for years. So, but if this would happen to be true, I would love it. I know we've talked about Noah Gragson quite a bit on the pod, and I've been kind of a fan of him. So I think that just makes that three car better. I think Noah Gragson is a stronger driver than Austin Dillon. I don't think there's much debate there. So that would just boost RCR and hopefully boost Kyle Busch's performance too. Because when you got good teammates, it always helps to boost your performance. So if that were to be true, I'd be 100% in. I would love that move for RCR.
yeah, that Noah Gragson I think is definitely an upgrade over Austin Dillon. I just don't
Yeah.
think that Noah Gragson's in the best of a ride right now. So
Right.
um, yeah, no, that would be best case scenario for Mr. Kyle Busch. So I
I think
think
so.
so. Finally have a competent somewhat teammate that can actually help him and not wreck him, and.
That's true. That's true. And we do say this after he had like his best race in I don't know what past 2 3 years. Austin Dillon finishing I think sixth at Gateway, which I know you and TJ got into the recap of that just before this, but I'll just kind of give my thoughts on that because it was a hell of a race. I do like that track. It seems to provide with some excitement. I know that McDowell ends up with another pole and shows strength at the beginning, and then I think he finished like 25th or something, as typical McDowell fashion. But there was a lot of battling for the lead, and some good racing early on, and then I think it kind of clearly showed that the class of the field was Christopher Bell and the Penske cars.
Mhm.
Penske had a really good day, and then obviously Bell swept stages 1 and 2. And then speaking of stage 2, of course, as a Kyle Busch fan, I have to talk about this wreck. But yeah, so Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, they wrecked in stage 2, as you guys probably talked about in the previous section here. But I know you guys are probably gonna, go or probably did go hard on Kyle Busch, give him a bunch of shit as usual. But I'll just say and Kyle Larson said this too, is that I think they were just two drivers racing really hard. The reports I had saw is that Kyle Busch ran Larson down the racetrack so that he didn't have a clean line or just an angle to get into the turn. But clearly Larson also didn't let up, and Kyle was on the. So it's two drivers racing real hard, and Kyle Busch was on the outside, and he got the worst of it. Obviously, ends his day finishing 35th, which he cannot take at all because now I think he was like 18th or maybe 20th in the points, below the cut line and with no strength showing. So it's very, very bad for him. Kyle Larson able to salvage a top 10 because he gets kind of saved off Kyle Busch's car. But yeah, it sucks. I know I picked him in our pick'ems, um, and I know I just had to pick him. I wasn't really expecting much. I wasn't expecting him to get the win, but definitely not finishing second to last. So, and then yeah, I know you guys have talked about it in length because obviously the end of this race was crazy, but I thought it was pretty awesome to see, just like what I saw or said earlier, that Christopher Bell's the class of the field. So was the Penske cars, and they went on that different strategy late. And Christopher Bell's making that charge, and then I don't think anybody's made a like definitive statement on what happened, but that mysterious mechanical failure for Bell ends up happening, and then um, we see him getting pushed around the track by Truex to kind of save his day. That's talk about teamwork, but then yeah, I'll just give my 2 cents on Blaney because Blaney does what Blaney always fucking does and finds a way, not to his own fault, but just it just happens to that 12 team and Ryan Blaney running out of fuel on the last lap to give Austin Cindric the win. I mean, uh, what a wild race for sure.
Uh, yeah. No, I mean, me and TJ went over a little bit more of that recap, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a crazy, crazy, crazy finish. Crazy
Yep.
finish. I mean, Blaney had it in the bag, basically, and, just typical Blaney, just worst luck of a driver I've ever seen.
Seriously.
One lap to go.
Oh, poor Krista, man. We got finally all got back together for NASCAR Sunday, and can't imagine the wave of emotions from one lap what it
Yep.
caused her. So, all right. Well, let's move on to our power rankings, and it breaks my heart to start with this driver. Seen him back in the number 18, not the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, but that would be the 18th place in the power rankings.
You wish.
His yeah, I do. I very much do. But yeah, so he drops 4 spots. Yeah, quite a big drop. I mean, I think he was showing top 10 speed. It wasn't like he had a terrible car, but he had the lead for a little bit, just because of strategy, staying out, I think, after stage 1. led like 20 laps or something, but he wasn't a top five car, wasn't going to race for the lead. Um, I originally said I thought this was too far of a drop, but then looking at the drivers ahead of him, I don't know that I can really argue too much about it.
Yeah, I've always said that I look at Kyle Busch this year as kind of somewhere sitting around that 15 to 17 spot kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I've always seen him sitting. Um, 18 might be a little too far back because, like you said, he was showing pretty dominant speed, especially this last week. And but I mean, going into this next week, I mean, his odds are looking, a little decent, I mean, they're 28 to 1, so I mean,
Yeah.
they're not terrible odds, but they're looking pretty good, especially with how he put out last week at a racetrack that he's been dominant at, and yeah, I feel
Yeah.
I feel this is a good spot for Kyle Busch.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I'm sure we'll see a lot better from some of the road course dominant guys that we've seen in the past, especially at Sonoma. So 28 to 1, I can't be too mad about. I wish it were in the teens, but I mean, it's a different type of racing than we've really seen for a while. So I can't be too mad about it. But then, so let's move right along, and we'll go to Austin Cindric up at 16. So he jumps up 4 spots from last week. And honestly, I think that that's fair. I know that we talk a lot about it, the jumps and stuff from NASCAR's power rankings, but for one, it wasn't like a fluke win. I know that he wasn't going to win it, but he showed obviously speed all day and was in the top, three, top five. And I think that with that win, especially like the guys below him, like we're talking about Kyle Busch, like the fact of the matter is, has Kyle Busch been a better driver this season? Maybe, it could be debatable, and probably just if you were to subtract last week. But the thing about NASCAR is a win is so huge, and it wasn't a fluke when Austin Cindric was dominant. So I think it's fair to put him ahead of Kyle Busch and in that 16 spot.
Yeah, I mean Austin Cindric, so he showed a lot of speed. I mean he would have came out with second at the least, if
Yep.
there wasn't the fuck up by Blaney.
Yeah.
Um, but I think him moving up 4 spots to 16, I think that's a good spot for him, especially after a win. I mean, you throw a win into your season, it's always going to be an outlier.
Yep.
Um, he's coming into to this week with about the same odds as Kyle Busch at Sonoma, 28 to 1 odds. So
Pretty good for him.
yeah.
Well, let's move right along up the list to number 15, Bubba Wallace, who drops down 2 spots. And I think this is fair, and we're starting to see him slip. I think, can't remember if he got to the top 10, but he was creeping his way up there and having some good momentum. But that momentum has faded. He's just got one top 10 in the last 6 races. And I remember us talking about Gateway is not one of his best tracks, and road courses are even worse for him. He's never been a road course racer. I mean, you got to have certain skills, and it's not a knock on Bubba, but like if you don't have those skills, you don't. We saw plenty of dominant drivers throughout their career, pretty much probably mark off, Sonoma, Watkins Glen, or whatever other road courses there were, and be like, "Yep, we're not gonna do much this day. Just hope we get a top 30 or something." You know what I mean? And Bubba's probably one of those drivers.
Yeah, I mean Bubba's really disappointed me this last month. I mean, because like we talked about it a lot in the beginning of the season. He was always a dominant. He seemed like he had a dominant car.
Yep.
At the start of the season, it seemed like 23-11. Both drivers were going to finally be dominant. Okay. Um, it looked like they were finally going to be like a dominant team together, and Bubba and Reddick could work together in those top 10 spots. But Bubba's really fallen off, like you said, in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
really sucks. And and you said, and like you said, he's not the best road course racer. So his odds for this week are not the best. They're 200 to 1.
Oh
That
my
is
God.
probably about the worst
Damn.
odds. Probably about the worst odds we've seen from a top 20 driver in the power rankings.
Wow, 200 to 1. I mean, yeah, you usually see those odds with like Kaz and Justin Haley or something,
Yeah.
not Bubba
Right.
Wallace, but wow, 200 to 1. Can you imagine if Bubba just like pulled some magic trick out of his ass, some strategy thing, and you put some money down on that? Oh boy, you're looking pretty, but yeah, 200 to 1, not a good look for Bubba. That's
No.
sorry. That's just a little funny. Not a knock on Bubba, just the fact it's 200 to 1 for a top driver, like you said. All right. Well, let's move right on up to number 14. TJ's boy Joey Logano. Again, I think a fair ranking. As much as I hate
Is
to
it
say it,
TJ's boy though? Is it TJ's
yeah.
boy? We don't.
You know
We
what?
don't
That's a
know if it
good
is or
point.
not.
I didn't get to check out that earlier portion yet. I'll have to look at that after this. But yeah, I mean, talk about if anything, you can call me anything. I know we've talked about it on this podcast where it's like, oh, he's a Patriots fan, he's a Kyle Busch fan, he's a whatever. But hey, Kyle Busch fan doesn't mean what it used to mean. Doesn't mean that anymore. And at least I'll still be wearing this gear, and I'll be wearing it until he retires, and probably just follow if Brexton gets into NASCAR. I'll just keep that Bush name on my body and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, Joe. Speaking of TJ, like you said, we don't know if he's a RFK guy, Penske guy. It seemed like he switched from Brad as soon as Brad went to RFK and sucked for a while. And now that Brad won a race and is looking good, we're Brad fans again. It's kind of funny how that works. But so we'll
Well,
just say the 20. Well, go ahead.
Blaney's looking to win this last race, and he's a Blaney fan now, and back to
After on the
Penske
podcast, we're saying, "Oh yeah, I know you're a little fond of Blaney's. I'm not fond of Blaney. Bullshit. Every time Blaney's up there in the front, you're cheering for him.
Uh huh.
A little more than just a teammate cheer, because I get like cheering for your teammate. Like you cheer for Suarez whenever he's up there as a trackhouse guy, but it's a little different with TJ. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. See if he's already got his RFK gear yet. We'll have to check on that. But yeah, Joey Logano, 22 car, goes up 2 spots to 14, and I think that's fair because he was one of those Penske cars, all three of them up front, and finished with the top five. So I get moving him over Bubba and Kyle Busch. Like, fact of the matter, they've had kind of similar seasons. Joey Logano's had some better finishes here and there, and yeah, got a top five. Kyle Busch finished 35th, so I think it's fair. Put him at 14 for now.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I feel like as the season goes, we've been kind of NASCAR's been kind of leveling off on the drastic changes, other than maybe a couple of big mover drivers that come out of nowhere. But I feel like Joey Logano's kind of been sitting in that 14 to 15 spot for this whole season, really. I mean, and like you said, I mean, he showed strength. I mean, he won the All Star race, and then he showed strength at Gateway, top five finish. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's solidified his spot there at 14. But his odds coming into Sonoma are 45 to 1. So they're not really liking his odds coming into a road course. And maybe you might know a little bit better than I do, but I don't know Joey Logano's history with road courses. So
I was just thinking about that, and I don't, I cannot recall one that he's won, and that very well could be wrong. But yeah, I don't think he's been strong. Definitely not as of late at road courses. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, 45 to 1 kind of probably indicates that he's, like you said, not the strongest driver at road courses. So we'll have to see and check on that. I don't think it's a Ford thing. Um, we'll have to see though. Yeah, I'll look at that. But let's move on for now. Let's move on to number 13. That would be maybe TJ's second favorite driver. I don't know. Chris Buescher, Brad's RFK teammate. He moves up 2 spots to 13, which is good. But again, like I said, we're kind of leveling up. But last week, this is the big one that we talked about because they dropped Buescher 5 spots.
Yeah.
So like maybe he belonged 13th anyways, if not a little bit higher already. Just because obviously he's shown speed. He could have, 2 wins on the season if things went his way, and we'd be looking at him as a top 5 driver. So to drop him down to 15 is a little bit ridiculous. 13 might still be a little bit low for me.
No, I mean, yeah, I've liked Chris Buescher this whole season. I think he's had a really strong ride, and I just think that he's had, them tough spots where he's in the place to get a top 5, and something goes wrong, or he gets barely inched out, or something that just doesn't go his way. I mean, I feel like I could put him. Honestly, I mean, with the rest of the guys that are ahead of him on this list, I honestly don't know if I could put him higher than anybody else in front of here. Um,
Yeah.
but maybe 13 is a good spot for him, at least for now. But he is coming into Sonoma with 14-1 odds, so
Oh,
he's looking
wow.
pretty good. He's looking pretty good on Sonoma Road Course. Maybe he gets that top 5 that he's been looking for, and maybe even gets that race win.
Yeah, that might be pretty good for him. I am looking up currently Joey Logano's stats, and it looks like he has 1 win August 9th, 2015 at Watkins Glen. This is like a kind of a shady looking website, so we'll see. But he's got some top 5s mixed in there and some top 10s, but also a lot of lower finishes, 30s and low 20s. So it looks like overall not one of the strongest for him. And obviously, for as dominant of a career he's had, to only have 1 win at a road course shows that not really the best road course drivers. So just wanted to, yeah, I was curious about that when you asked. I wanted to look that up, but yeah, we'll have to see on Chris Buescher as well. Those are really good odds. 14-1 for Sonoma. I wonder how he's gonna perform. But let's move on up to number 12. That'd be Alex Bowman. And Bowman, the showman, we've been talking about, who's been just getting those top 10s out of nowhere. Seemingly, you don't even notice him at all, and then he finishes 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Well, his consistency wore off this week. Pretty bad week for him. Finished 28th at Gateway. So they
Yeah, the
dropped him
one
three
week I need
spots.
him.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna pick him for. What'd you say? I'm gonna pick him for that top 10 to get my average up.
Uh
Yeah, it drops down. So, yeah, he drops down 3 spots, and yeah, I think that's kind of fair as well. Because, like we said, it's not like he's been fantastic. He's just been finding a way to be consistent. Now it wore off.
Yeah, I mean, I he's so silent. He's like a silent, really good driver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
got all those top 10s, and I didn't even realize that until you said it on the last podcast. I was like, oh really? Bowman's got
yeah.
that many top 10 finishes. Wow. Um, I think he might have dropped just a little too far.
Hmm.
We'll get into it when we get into the driver I'm thinking should replace him. I'll explain it a little more, but yeah, I mean he's coming into Sonoma with 45-1 odds this week, so not the best odds, you know, but
But probably kind of typical Alex Bowman odds,
yeah,
right? Like that's like every week he's in those lower odds. You don't really
yeah. I
think he's
mean
gonna win.
he might be able to get like a late top 10 finish, like an 8, 9, or a 10, or fall back into the 15s. That's
Yep.
that's kind of what I'm seeing, kind of maybe with how his odds are coming out this week. So
Makes sense to me. Well, let's move on up to the world's unluckiest driver, Ryan Blaney. They give him a bump. They move him up one spot, which I think is fair because, like I said, unlucky. He should have won that race.
Hmm.
Um, he may have been able to even hold off Christopher Bell. You never know with the aero blocking and stuff taking away people's lines like we've seen all season. He may have been able to do that, win that race. So I think that's fair.
No, and I mean, yeah, it's just and you're not when you're doing these odds, you can't look at just the driver too. You got to look at the whole crew.
Yep.
I mean, and that comes from the guy sitting in the head seat. That comes from your pit crew. You know, and the guys sitting with the headset on. Just didn't count the laps right, or Ryan Blaney was burning too much fuel because I mean he had a pretty decent gap on Austin Cindric there at the end. It looked like it was his race to lose, and well, he lost it. So
I did hear. I didn't look like too much into it, but I did hear that it may have been a gas again pit crew gas man's fault. Like maybe he just didn't like he thought that they had enough fuel because they're supposed to give. I think you'll always see, they'll give the nod. All right, we got fuel or we got enough or whatever, and maybe he messed up. That's just something I heard. I don't know too much about it, but like you said, it's a whole team effort. That's what I think. I think that's a great point, Wes. That a lot of times that gets lost in NASCAR because you
yeah,
think so much of the driver, but there's so much that goes into it. Not even on Sunday either, like Saturday, Friday, and throughout the week when they're doing testing and they're looking at data and stuff. So that's a
yeah,
great point. Well, let's move
yeah.
on to the top 10. Oh, sorry. Did you have any more
Oh,
thoughts on that?
I was just gonna give him his odds, but you just wanted
Oh.
to move right on to the top 10.
My
So,
bad, my bad. I've been doing so good for so long. I haven't been skipping odds, and damn, I broke the streak.
oh, so Ryan Blaney's odds coming into Sonoma this week are 28-1. So I mean they're looking at him maybe getting a good top 10 finish. If his
Well,
if his gas if his gas applier doesn't drop the ball, or somebody fails to count how many laps there are of fuel, or or he doesn't burn it too fast, or
or he's just not Ryan Blaney, I think is what you're saying. Golly. Now, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I don't know if Vegas didn't see his practice results coming or if they did and they're just still banking on Ryan Blaney being Ryan Blaney and that's why he doesn't have like top odds. But we'll get into that later. Now I think we're ready for the top 10. And that would be your boy, the Melon Man, like you got there. Ross Chastain moves up one spot to number 10. And before I let you get into it, I'll just read off a little bit of stats here. So I saw that he's on pace for only 10 total top 10s this season. Like we've talked about a few times, still only had that one top 10, which was the Coke 600 um, since Coda. And he actually did slip out of the top 10 in points. But he's one thing, with all that said, he's on pace for his career best finish, average finish for the season, which is like 13th or something. So, I mean, all I have to say about that is how much more on brand can Ross Chastain be for this season, like we talk about every single fucking week. Well, he's not going to get a top 10, but he's going to finish between 11th and 13th and get some decent points. Like, I swear, that's what we say every fucking week.
yeah, I mean Frost Chastain's been very. I don't know if I want to call it disappointing this season. It just doesn't seem like he lost his edge. I feel. He had that edge last year where he was the asshole, and nobody liked him, and I wish he would have kept it, honestly, because him being the nice guy has not worked out in his favor. Um, I would honestly, this is the driver that I would switch with Alex Bowman. Um, I don't think Ross deserves to be in the top 10 whatsoever.
Wow.
He hasn't shown that he needs to be in the top 10. Like you said, I mean, he's coming in, he's looking at his best average finish. at 13th. I mean,
Yep.
he's a guy that he has to go win a race. You know what I mean? And he hasn't shown he can do that this year. Other than the first month of NASCAR, that was the only time that he actually showed that he could go win a race. Other than that, it's been 10th through 13th where he's finishing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very disappointing. But he's not bad at road courses. I mean, he did
No,
win
he's a good
Coda.
rose course racer. Yep.
He did win Coda a couple of years ago, and maybe he comes into Sonoma and actually might be able to slip one out and get finally a win this year and cement his spot in the playoffs. But he's coming into Sonoma with 22-1 odds, so they're thinking that he's going to finish top 10, which I
Yeah.
mean I would take, but I just need to see him get his win so that way I can stop stressing about him making the playoffs.
You and me both, man. You and me both. But obviously, Ross Chastain's in a little bit better spot, a lot better spot than Kyle Busch. So I totally get what you're saying, though. You want that win because you're slipping, and then you never know too. Because when you get a guy like Austin Cindric, for example, no disrespect, but he gets a win, that takes one less playoff spot away. That's one less playoff points. So Ross Chastain's probably not in danger yet, but he's slipping down. And if you get that win, like you said, you secure it and you feel good about it. Yeah, I don't know. I think you bring up a great point. It's a lot of humility from any one of us, which doesn't happen too much, especially on like Sundays and stuff. But that's a real. I mean, it's a really good point about like him losing his edge. I mean, he just came in. I think like it was 2 years ago when I think his first win at Coda, like you were talking about, where he was driving through what Bowman and I think Allmendinger, and they were banging and
Yeah,
shoving off of the last lap, and there was no fucks given. Wall ride, obviously, and then last year was
yep,
the punch, like, and yeah, just none of those moments this
yeah,
season and for a long
yeah.
time.
Yeah, it sucks to see him lose his edge. It's like everybody in NASCAR kind of said, we don't need assholes like you in NASCAR anymore. You're wrecking our multi-million-dollar cars, and you need to stop.
Yeah. Well, and yeah,
You're
I'll
out.
even say, I know we gave you a lot of shit for it when he was doing it, but the fact of the matter is it was entertaining and it's fun. I know it as a Kyle Busch fan, it's fun to be that villain. It's fun to have your driver as that villain and doesn't give a fuck and wins races without asking for a thank you, without asking for praise. And yeah, it just seemed like I don't know if it was him or I'm forgetting your owner's name. No, I think it's Justin something, but I can't remember. But anyways, like maybe him, like, hey, sit down, like you can't do this anymore. We need to not wreck race cars or not wreck other people's race cars. But I think that's stupid, man. Like, let Ross Chastain be who he is. And like, I remember the
Well,
only thing I told you about was like, I hated how he apologized for it. So I think it's partly him because he would always be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't race like that, yada, yada. And I'm just like, be that villain. That was something I'd always told you. Like, just be that guy. Don't be apologetic about it. But now, it's just all that magic is just gone.
I
Essentially,
mean,
it seems like.
I honestly think that Hendrick had a big part in it
Oh
because
yeah,
he was always wrecking. Him and Kyle Larson always had their battles, and then there was the last straw was when Ross drove Larson into the wall. you know, um, and
at
basically
Darlington. Yeah,
they both had a shot at winning the race, and Ross just ended both of their days. You know what I mean?
yep, yep.
And I think that was the final straw. That was the final pin out of the coffin into the coffin. I mean, that was Hendrick finally had enough and said, "Stop wrecking my race cars" to the owner of Trackhouse, and then all of a sudden Ross Chastain went soft. So
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on up to Ty Gibbs at number 9. He drops one spot. I don't think he had that great of a race at Gateway, so not too terrible. I think it's more about the person that jumped him, which we'll get into. But yeah, not much to say there. I think a fair spot for Ty Gibbs at number 9.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Ty Gibbs has been a top 10 driver all year. And still waiting for that win, like we say every
Yep.
fucking week, but
Yep.
still waiting for it. And I still think that he's got it, and he's got to get one this year. I still think he's going to, but I like him sitting at
Yep.
his odds coming into Sonoma are 15-2, so he's actually got some pretty damn good odds going into Sonoma.
Ooh. Something tells me he might not make it out of the first round, or I mean, he's definitely getting picked in our pick'ems this week. Those are pretty good odds, and I know he had a good practice too, which we'll get into. But let's move on to number 8. Interesting to hear your. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this one because I know that you've been not like a Christopher Bell hater, but almost like you haven't been giving him any slack all season.
Yeah.
Like you just been honest about it. And but he moves up to number 8, up 2 spots. And I'll just say, like, I think I'm starting to say that I think this is fair. I think that he deserves to be a top 10 driver. Obviously, he gets the rain shortened win at the Coke 600, but he was still the most dominant driver there. And then he was the most dominant driver at Gateway. So it kind of seems like they're figuring things out. And it's a good time to figure things out. We're about the halfway point of the season now, and they got momentum. So I like that. I mean, he very well could have won at Gateway. I mean, he obviously won the first 2 stages. So I think it's fair. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think Christopher Bell, he's had a few good races now, and I think jumping up to 8 is a good spot for him. I mean, obviously he has the asterisks with the rain now. A lot of people didn't like it, but I think 8 is a good spot for him. He was dominant there, dominant last week. Um, I mean, and what was wrong with his car? Did we ever figure that out, or?
No, yeah, mysterious mechanical failure. That's all I've seen. And Bell said, like, I don't even know what happened when he got out of the car.
Yeah, and I mean that's just bad luck. I mean, he came into stage 1 dominant, stage 2 dominant, mechanical failure. All of a sudden, all the Penske boys are up front,
Yep.
um, and so. But I mean, I like him at 8. I think he's got a good spot at 8. Him coming into Sonoma this week, he's got the same odds as Ty Gibbs, 15-2. So
Ooh.
pretty high up there. Maybe they're thinking there's not going to be a mechanical failure this week.
Joe Gibbs starting off strong. And speaking of Joe Gibbs, I know you were talking about it. The NASCAR is getting better at not being so crazy on these drops and these rises and everything. But I don't know about how you think, but I think this is ridiculous and honestly a bullshit move. They moved Martin Truex Jr. down to number 7, dropping 3 spots. Now, I know that he had a very bad day. He had that tire blow um, at Gateway, but like that's a blip in his season. That happens to drivers. That shit happens. It happens. It's happened to Larson a few times this season. Um, so I don't put too much stock in that. And then we're going to Sonoma, which I know you'll get into with the odds here in a bit, which is one of his best all time tracks. I mean, he was winning there before he even had a Joe Gibbs ride. Like he was racing for Michael Waltrip Racing, getting wins there. So I think it's bullshit, and I think they were doing good until about now when you drop Martin Truex Jr. down to 7.
Yeah, but I mean, what what has Martin Truex done in the last month?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't won a races, but I think he's still running well. He's still running top tens, getting top fives every now and then. I don't know his exact
Yeah, but
results,
I
but
mean, is that not the same as what Alex Bowman is doing?
yeah, but but Truex has been better. Like he's been racing for wins where Bowman hasn't.
Okay. Well, I mean, but I mean, it's not. I mean, what shows though? What shows during the season? You know what I mean? Alex
Yeah,
Bowman and him have been doing the same thing all season. I mean, you could say
but
that he had a dominant ride this week, and then he finishes top 10 just like Alex Bowman did. You know what I mean?
yeah,
like he's not
Truex
finishing
has
that
clearly
race.
been. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, he's not finishing that race, and like you were giving Larson a bunch of slack about it a few podcasts ago about not being able
Hmm.
to finish a race.
Yep.
Truex hasn't been doing that. So I mean, I think he's even though he has maybe had a better ride than Bowman. I mean, but I feel like they're kind of in the same boat.
Well, God damn it, you must be the one rating these power rankings for NASCAR. 'Cause that's just, no, I don't know. I think it's good though. Finally, like, I think it's good. We have a little bit of disagreement, but I like, I don't know. I just don't think that he's the seventh best driver this season. I think he's still top five worthy. I know he doesn't have the wins, and that's a good point, and that's something that I've been talking about. Whereas I was talking about with Larson to get the number one spot, not like, fourth or
Well,
fifth.
right,
Like I was just like getting the one spot.
But obviously Larson has wins already.
Mm.
He had wins when we said that. Truex
He had
doesn't have a
one.
win.
He had one. He had one win
Doesn't
when we
matter. It's
said
still one more than Truex.
Yep, that's true. But hey,
uh,
watch Sonoma happen. Watch Truex dominate Sonoma, which very well could happen,
it very well
and
could.
watch him jump up to fucking number three on NASCAR's rankings. You know what I mean?
Back to number three again. Yeah, I mean he was at three at one point.
Yep, yep.
Um, but I mean, like you said, Martin Truex, dominant driver at Sonoma. He's coming in with 11-2 odds.
Woo. All right, you better not take him after talking all this shit on him then. All
Hey
right, but
man,
yeah.
top 10 finish. I picked Bowman last week.
All right, well, let's move on to number six. Again, another dominant driver with 3 wins who hasn't had he hasn't been a driver that's like, oh, he should have won this race, but William Byron dropping 3 spots at number six. And what I found funny about this now, Wesley, I don't know if you are the writer for these NASCAR Power Rankings, but in the description, whether it was yours or someone else's, it states that he has 4 finishes of seventh or better in the last 7 races. So, like, consistency is what we've
Yeah,
seen. And
yeah.
so, why are we dropping him 3 spots when he's been very consistent, not only top 10, but top 7?
No, and I think that's a valid point because I honestly think that he should be sitting at the least he should be sitting at 4. He has 3 race wins on the season. Like he can't
Yep,
he can't just not look at that. You know what I mean?
right.
Like it doesn't matter how consistent he's been. He has 3 race wins. He at least needs a
Sorry, he
top
doesn't
five.
have 6, right? Like, it's like they're expecting him to have 6 rate. Like, oh, you haven't stuck to your William Byron dominant ways. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, just because he's not winning races, you're gonna just drop him?
Yeah, and it's not like he's not winning races. He's won 3.
Yeah, winning
That's
races in
tied
the
with
last month or whatever. Yeah,
that's
right.
tied with the most on the season. You know what I
Yep.
mean? That's just insane to me. I mean he's got good odds coming into Sonoma. Maybe he goes and gets that 4th to fucking shut NASCAR up. Um, but he's got 15-2 odds coming into this week. So I mean he's looking pretty damn good up there with Truex. So
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on to the top 5 then, and that would be. Sorry, did TJ say this was his driver yet, or are we still on the fence? We
shit.
don't.
I don't know. It changes each week, man.
It
I
does. It
can't
does.
tell you.
I bet you. I We'll have to see what your odds say later on, but I bet you once he hears these odds, he probably won't be. But Brad Keselowski moves into the top 5, his season high this year. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not like mad about it because Brad has had a great season. I am mad about it because Brad has had a great season. As a Kyle Busch fan, I'm mad about it, but I'm not mad about the spot. Except for I don't think that he's better than the 2 drivers below him. I know he's got the win on Truex. I get that. But I still think Truex is more consistent. And obviously, Byron has 3 wins and a lot more consistency. So, yeah, Brad at 5. Does he deserve a top 5 spot in your eyes?
No, I mean he's got the one win, which is deserving. But I mean, one win is an outlier. I would say 3 wins is dominant.
Yep.
One win outlier. And at the least, I say William Byron and Brad Keselowski need to flip. You know what I mean?
That's
I
pretty
mean,
fair.
Byron needs to be in the top 5. I mean, he's got 3 fucking race wins for heaven's sakes. You know
Seriously.
what I mean?
Seriously.
Brad, and this is what's insane to me. This is insane. A top 5 power ranking driver coming in at 100-1 odds to win a race. That's insane to me.
How can you even say it? How is that sentence that you just said true, right? Like, how does that even make sense? I read a thing, or like, I looked through and I saw that Cam Waiters, I don't even know his name, because he's one of those road course guys that comes in just for those races. He's got 60-1 odds. And this is his first race of this season, unless he raced at Coda. I don't remember, but first or second race, and he's got better odds than the best driver at RFK.
I wonder what
Like, that's pretty
SVJ's
crazy.
odds are. I wonder what
I
SVJ.
wonder if he was in this race. I'm not sure if he actually entered out, and I'm wondering why he might not have. I'll have to check
Yeah.
and see. But let's move on. While you're looking that up, let's move on to Tyler Reddick, a very well known road course racer. He's at number 4, which was where he was last week. Thank you. All right, Kyle. Woohoo! We got that sentence out. Not too mad about that, except for, again, I think that there's a couple of drivers that might be a little bit better than him. But I've also been a big Tyler Reddick fan. I think he's a top 5 racer. Um, but yeah, I mean, what do you think about Reddick at 4?
Yeah, I mean, I could honestly move him back. I mean, I'd kick Brad out of the top 5, maybe move Riley back to 5, and then move Byron back to 4. That would be what I would think needs to happen. Yeah, I mean, he deserves to be in the top 5. I would say. I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, maybe I would maybe put Truex over Reddick.
Okay.
That's another flip I would do. I would maybe put Truex over Reddick, but um, you know, coming in at 4 hasn't moved really. A couple weeks now. He's coming into Sonoma with 17-2 odds. He's been a good road course
Always a
driver.
good road course driver. Yep.
So coming in at 17-2, that's really not that bad.
Not bad at all. And let's move on up to number 3. Now, this is another, like, I think a little bit of bullshit move. Chase Elliott breaks into the top 3. Um, and it was funny
Wow.
because reading the NASCAR's description, he finished 13th at Gateway, and in the description say that he didn't show anything of note, like anything exciting. It wasn't he wasn't dominating the race. He wasn't didn't do anything great. But they're giving him this bump because he's really good at road courses and Sonoma. So this is a little more like of my gripe where I was talking about Truex earlier. So I know that Truex finished bad at Gateway because of that blown tire, but we're going to move Chase Elliott up 3 spots because he's good at Sonoma, a race that hasn't even happened yet. And we're going to move
Yeah.
Truex down 3 spots, even though he's probably maybe even better than Chase Elliott. So Chase Elliott in the top 3. I
It's
mean,
almost
that
it's
talk about a
almost like
guy that doesn't belong. It's
almost a
almost like
family.
you're trying to appease somebody. Yeah, that might be a good. I think that might be the only reason. Wes, do you see any other reason
No,
that he should be in 3rd?
I mean, it's just. I mean, I think he deserves to be back in like 7th. He hasn't shown anything besides his
Yep.
one win.
And he hasn't been terrible. I know we talked about it last week. He doesn't. He hasn't. I think he's finished in the top 20 still every race.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're a top 3 driver. That means you're a
Oh,
top 20
God
driver.
no.
And obviously,
Yeah.
he's not 20th, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah. No, I mean, then moving him up to 3 is just insane. I don't, and especially moving him up 3 spots based specifically off of a race that hasn't happened yet.
Right, he finished 13th. That's in my eyes, that's not a three-spot move. Now, when we
Especially in the
brought
top
what
five.
right, Cindric bumped up 4 spots, you got to win. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But three
Yeah.
spots for finishing 13th because you're going to a good track? No, I'm not here for that. But let's move
Oh
on to his
yeah, it's
Hendrick. Oh, nope.
you didn't. You just
Mm-mm.
tried. You just
No,
tried it again.
I stopped myself.
Yeah. So I mean, Chase Elliott coming into Sonoma, like you said, he's a good road course racer. Got the same odds as Reddick, coming in at 17-2. Also, looked up the SVJ, and he is not racing at Sonoma.
Huh. I wonder why they didn't put him in there. I wonder contractual stuff or whatever. But or maybe it's not his type of road because it's a different kind of road course. It's not like Coda or the Chicago street race. Like it's very hilly and stuff. So I don't know if that made any
Technically,
difference.
with his Cup contract, he's only got two road course races. He's got Watkins Glen and Chicago Street Race.
Oh, okay.
Everything else, I mean, he's got Charlotte, Talladega, Circuit of America, and then Las Vegas.
Okay. Got it. So it's just part of his contract.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, now let's move on to number two, which is Kyle Larson. Sticking in our same spots as last week. Not much to say really about the top two. I think finally we've gotten to a not controversial side, but yeah, Kyle Larson number two obviously makes sense. Maybe he should still be number one as far as how dominant he's been. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think he's good at two. I mean, he's been a dominant driver, but he also missed a race.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't like holding that against him, but at least dropping him back to two is fine with me. Coming into this at Sonoma, he's got 15-2 odds. Whoopty doo, Kyle Larson has good odds to win a race. I'm almost getting tired of fucking saying it every week, but
Well, let's move on to number one. That would be Denny Hamlin. Can't get too mad. Should he be number two? Maybe we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have like a great race. I can't even remember. It wasn't. He didn't challenge for the win, but Denny Hamlin at one.
Yeah, and I feel like at this point in the season, I think Denny Hamlin's just cruising. He's
Yeah,
got the three
right.
wins. I mean, but I mean, he's up there in the top 10 usually every week, so maybe
Oh
he's
yeah,
still competing for those wins. But
yeah.
I mean, coming into Sonoma, he's got 20-1 odds, so
Oh.
not bad, not terrible.
I want to
Maybe
say
looking at
let's look. Let's look back because I want to say that's the worst. Yeah, that's the worst of the Joe Gibbs racers. So not as strong of a road course racer for Denny Hamlin, but not like he needs it, as you were just saying.
yeah.
So, all right, let's move into Kyle's power rankings, the favorite power rankings list, as we always say. I'll just go through like five at a time and see what you think. So I'll flip Kyle Larson again and Denny Hamlin like I did last week. No change there. And then I'm going to keep Byron at three for the same reasons you were kind of echoing about how dominant of a season he had, and because like as of late he's still been consistent. And then I'm going to keep Truex at four for the reasons I've pretty much already mentioned, and then I'll go Tyler Reddick at five.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I really have against that would be Truex. I mean, I put Truex maybe 6 to 10, and
Mm.
probably higher, maybe 6, 7. That's probably what I'm looking at there. That's my only speculation.
Well, let's see. Let's go 6 to 10, and let's see what driver maybe you want to put above them. I'm gonna go. So Brad Keselowski at number six. I'll go Chase Elliott at number seven. Then I'm gonna go Christopher Bell at number eight. Ty Gibbs at nine, and I'm gonna keep Chris Buescher in the top 10.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fine with me. The only thing I would do is probably push. I'd probably push Brad and Reddick up to a spot. Drop Truex back to 6.
Okay,
Other
I
than
can see
that,
that. That's a fair argument. They both got a win, and they both have very consistent finishes. So I think that's fair. I think
Yeah,
that's fair.
that'd be
But
my
not
only.
Chase Elliott. Not Chase Elliott,
No, hell
I
no.
think we should say.
Hell
All right, let's go on the next five. That would be Alex Bowman at 11, Ryan Blaney at 12, Ross Chastain at 13, Bubba Wallace at 14, and I'll put Cindric up to 15. And I'll just say, obviously, I'm going to keep Bowman up there at 11 for the consistency. I'm put Blaney, I think I flip flopped them pretty like over the past few weeks. I'm going to put Blaney over Chastain because Blaney should have won that race and showed some
no.
more dominance. I think Bubba overall has had a better season if you're going to go like the entire season, but Cindric right on his heels could very easily put Cindric over Bubba in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I got no gripe here. I mean, I'd keep, like I said, with the NASCAR rankings, I'd put Ross Chastain at 13. Hasn't really shown anything to
Yeah.
me, and that's kind of how it is. I mean, and Austin Cindric bumped to 15. I know he's got the race win, but you never really hear his name other than that one race win.
Yeah.
So
That's a good
maybe
point.
I. The only thing, it's just that one outlier. I mean, you can't push him back because he has a win, but he hasn't shown anything else. So
Yeah.
I guess you got to keep him at 15.
Well, I'll bump Mr. Joey Logano down to 16. I mean, Joey Logano's almost been the same. I know he's had a couple of races where he's had a decent finish. And then I'll put Kyle Busch at 17. Maybe give him a little bit of love from NASCAR. It's just one spot. No Gragson at 18. Suarez at 19. And then Carson Hocevar at 20.
Yeah, I got nothing wrong with that final five. I mean, Logano got a race win at a track that sucks and doesn't matter. You know
Yep. Yep.
what I mean?
Can't agree with you
so,
more there.
so I got nothing. I got nothing here for the last five. I mean, Daniel Suarez has the race win, so I think he's got to stay in the top 20s.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty much it, right? Exactly.
so,
Well, let's move on. Let's finish it off. Just a couple more notes. Like I said, practice concluded at Sonoma before we recorded this podcast, and like I said, that 28-1 seems a little. I don't know if you should go place your bets now, but Ryan Blaney was the fastest in practice, and then your boy Ty Gibbs second fastest by only like a few tenths of a second or something like that. Like it was pretty close.
hmm.
So, and then I'll go to number three, Will Brown. Never heard this name before. That's because this is his first ever time in a Cup car. But he's racing for RCR in the 33 car this week. Got that third charter. And I just wanted to say if Will Brown finds a way to win, I think we should just transfer that win over to Kyle's standings because I think that's fair enough. So we're rooting for Will Brown this week.
How does that work? Because I know that SVJ got his win at the Chicago one a few years ago, and
Yeah,
obviously they're
last
not
year.
going to be. Yeah, last year he's not going to obviously be racing in the playoffs. So how does that work? It just takes a win away
You,
from an
yeah, you
actual
just
Cup driver.
you have to be racing full time in the series, and basically you have to pick whatever series you want to be racing full time in. So you can race part time in other series, but your wins don't count for playoff implications if you do
Right.
happen to win. So same thing if where Kyle Busch goes down to the lower series, as TJ always likes to make fun of him for, then it doesn't count as far as the points go. So yep, that's kind of the practice highlights, and then we'll just update you on the standings because we're gonna make our picks just because we had to separate it out this week. We'll make our picks and we'll post on the social media before the race. But just update on the standings. So Wesley, you're still sitting in the lead at 25, but after last week, I made some headway on you, and I'm 23, just sitting 2 points below you. And TJ, I'll keep scrolling down. He's at 15 points. I did want to find our picks because I don't know that I updated them. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so I had Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Busch. And Kyle Busch, I was worried about getting his, like, my average messed up, but Larson and Hamlin held fort, and pretty safe picks for me to have them too. So they did pretty good. And then Wes, you had Reddick, Gibbs, and Bowman. And obviously Bowman, like you said, kind of screwed you over there. And then Reddick and Gibbs just didn't have a top race. And then TJ, of course, went his RFK route, his Ford route, and picked Keselowski, Buescher, and Blaney. He would have had the win. He would have been real close, but just one
there's
lap short of fuel.
there's a lot of emotion there at the end of that race.
A lot of shit happening. We're scrambling. Okay, so who won this one and stuff? It was crazy, but yeah. So like I said, we'll update you on our picks once we make them. We'll put them on social media. Thank you guys as always for joining us, Wesley. It was a pleasure, and we'll check you guys next week.